And this is why, because an extroverted person, they have so many minor, minuscule social interactions with people that it doesn't necessarily um, make it valuable for them to interact with people because they can meet 20 people in one day and it's like, hi, how are you, this and that, and how are the kids and how are you doing, how's your career, and all that. Whereas an introverted person, I would think more objectively, social interactions mean a lot more. So the impact of that exchange with another human being is more penetrable and more
Mm-hmm.
understandable with an introverted person because we don't have as much quantity of social interactions with other people compared to our counterparts as an extroverted person. So feelings mean more. Words that we say, memories that we have, experiences that we have, we tend to incorporate those a lot more and it's a lot more, I guess, meaningful to us.
Do you ever feel like no matter what you do, it's not good enough? Like perfect is the only standard, but you're still left feeling behind? Perfectionism keeps us stuck. It robs us of peace, of our joy, and the freedom to just be. That's why I created Beauty of Imperfection, Good is Enough, a guided workbook to help you let go of the pressure, quiet your inner critic, and start celebrating progress over perfection. Inside, you'll find tools that remind you your worth has never depended on being perfect. It's time to embrace the beauty of imperfection because good really is enough. Let me remind you, you are always worthy. You already are. Get your copy of my workbook today. Emotionally unavailable. Okay, so you are a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a therapist too. What
Awesome.
um what I have a theory about therapists and educators that we get into this work because of our own codependency and we want to save the world. So, what led you to therapy?
For my journey, it was a lot of happenstance. So it's not something that I would say that growing up, when people ask you what you want to be when you grow up, you're like a therapist. It didn't happen like that. So for me, in a short form of how to talk about it, I had NBA dreams that didn't necessarily work out due to injuries. And so was always great in school, A's and B's, honor rolls, those type of things. I did dual enrollment in high school, graduated with my associates along with my diploma. Went to Georgia State, did pre-med, was not good in biology. Then I was trying to do sports management to stay related to the sports field. I didn't get into the major because I was 0.04 points away from getting a C in accounting, which you needed to get into the major. And at that point in time, I was already a year and a half into regular college at Georgia State. And so I went to my advisor and I said, with all the credits from my associates, all the credits I've done for a year and a half here at Georgia State, what major can I do to get out of here in 2 years like I'm supposed to? And she said, da da da, da da da, psychology. I said, let's go with that. So no plan at all what to do with that, no long-term picture. I've always liked observing human beings. Pretty much you would say an old soul. I had an older mother, so she was in her 40s, so she's very high conscientious,
Mhm.
very intuitive without knowing the ins and outs and details of the, I guess, labels of what we do as human beings. And so graduated with the undergrad in psychology, didn't know that you can't do anything with that. And so
Mhm.
I did an
Mhm.
audit of myself and I said, what do I enjoy that if I was doing it and not being paid for it, I would still do it? What fulfills me? What could be financially beneficial in the long run? My temperament, being a very introverted type of person, and just my kind of purpose, which is for me, having very meaningful conversations about very deep things that are happening with people and conversations with things that matter. And so in my professional life, whether I've known it or not, I've always been a person to educate in some type of way or facet. And then it just kind of led me based on my other mentors that were in the teaching, social work, psychology field, that it wasn't anything that they get steered me towards, but it all came into fruition as I decided 6 months later to go into grad school for clinical counseling psychology. And so that's how I kind of ended up being a therapist. It wasn't the plan, but it's been pretty good ever since then. So I'm at that point right now, and that's what I do.
I love that. That was not at all what I was expecting you to say, and what a beautiful answer. So, okay, I have 2 questions and I don't wanna forget. One is, do you love did you love studying psychology because it's more of a science-based, human behavior aspect? And 2, damn it, what was the second? Oh, you introvert. I found later that I truly am an introvert because I don't wanna have meaningless conversations, but because of the way we're really programmed as children, especially women, but I find this in men too, like, just our inability to connect on an authentic level. Do you think this is probably a woo-woo thing to say, but you think introverts just kinda get it earlier in life that those meaningless conversations are just bullshit?
That's a great question. Um, so I think we'll answer that one and then we'll come back to the first one.
'Kay.
So, um, I'm an only child. So my mom had me at 36. She's Afro Latino. She's from St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands. And so the way that the culture grows up, it is very much a standard of good morale and ethics, respect for elders, being concise, um, having a understanding of community. And so my mom was pretty much the foundation for my entire family. And out of her 6 siblings, and so having me at such a late age, I say often that my mom did not bring me up with her. My mom raised me. And that's a different type of
Mhm.
mother and a different space in her life compared to an early 20-year-old woman that is still growing up with her child. So she already had her master's. She's been in her career for about 10 years. She's never been married like that. She's hasn't had other influences. So my mom raised me. And so that
Yeah.
wasn't my choice of being an only child, but growing up with that, she had a lot of answers and a lot of safety and a lot of foundation. And so for me, she would make a great psychologist if she were actually study it because it was just that even though I was introverted and an only child, it was always looking at other people. Philip, what do you observe about that child in the grocery store that's throwing a tantrum? Philip, we don't do that there. Um, Say please, say thank you. Um, you know, um, they don't have as much as we do. So bring them this. Whether it was in sports and I was better at sports than other people, I always got my teammates involved. And then look at how the family liked that their kid that may not have been there and coordinated, they were there for a different reason. So I supported them in that type of way. And so just those things made me more aware beyond just the surface levels of what I was doing. And so being introverted, now identifying with that, is just to myself naturally. And so for myself, an introverted person has the ability to be more objective in their interactions with life. And this is why, because an extroverted person, they have so many minor, minuscule social interactions with people that it doesn't necessarily um make it valuable for them to interact with people because they can meet 20 people in one day and it's like, hi, how are you? This and that. And how are the kids? And how are you doing? How's your career? And all that. Whereas an introverted person, I would think more objectively, social interactions mean a lot more. So the impact of that exchange with another human being is more penetrable and more
Mhm.
understandable with an introverted person because we don't have as much quantity of social interactions with other people compared to our counterparts as an extroverted person. So feelings mean more, words that we say, memories that we have, experiences that we have, we tend to incorporate those a lot more and it's a lot more, I guess, meaningful to us. And it's not minimizing extroverts and their stuff, but it's
Right.
different in that type of way. So I think introverts make the best interpersonal with people, whereas the extroverted persons, they need to look at the macro of stuff. And so, you can think of a president being the face of a country, whereas the introverted person are the people that actually run it. because they look
Right.
at all the minuscule details. You're just the face, you're the politician. It's no different than that when it comes to our regular micro interactions with people. So I would say that they're just more in tuned with people just based on their social level of engagement.
Right. Well, and do you think that by the way, excellent point, but differentiating between being raised and growing up with your child. I
Mhm.
had my first kid at 22 and damn, I would have done it way different now at
Mhm.
45, you know?
Mhm.
But, do you think that with the way that you were raised, there was more of a focus on presence? Because,
Mhm.
you guys not just walking in a grocery store and do 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 do.
Yeah.
I know, and you're off in your own world and she's off in her own world trying to pick
Right.
groceries.
Right.
She's really asking you to be in this present moment and, like, observe your surroundings. Do you feel
Yeah.
like that you really got a foundation of in intentionality, presence,
Yeah.
mindfulness?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you on that. I would say that I have been very fortunate to understand what it's like to be unconditionally loved. Like, I may not like my mother as a person, but she has been able to be in a wonderful, intrinsic, valuable, unconditional loving mother. And I've been fortunate enough throughout this human experience that we're very lucky to have to be able to have that, because the day that she passes, that will be the last day that I am loved unconditionally. So I'm very fortunate with that. How that came about is that mindful present thing, because again, she didn't have to deviate away from the only one thing she had to pay attention to. So
Mhm.
it's, compared to somebody who has six different kids, in a grocery store. So it was just us. And so with that, you just get so much intent for what you're doing. It's only one practice, it's only one tutoring session, it's only one person you got to get ready in the morning, one other meal you got to prepare, one other bad time, one toothbrush. Like that's it. So my thing about it was she just, because I think she also observed her family and her interactions and was very introverted herself. She observed things that she liked and did not like, but how
Mhm.
she did it was so, I don't know, it just had a great essence and class to it. So let me give you a story. Like, for example, Toys R Us was the thing when I was growing up, and I loved the toy store. They
Yes.
had a gaming section, they had action figures. I was into Power Rangers, Yu-Gi-Oh, Zelda, all those type of stuff, right? Or playing a bike, you could ride the bike back then. It was a lot, right? So I just enjoyed it. So there was a toy store and there was a bookstore. So I would, when I was old enough or more responsible, I would go to the toy store. She would go to the bookstore. When she was done, she would come over. So when I wanted something, she could afford it and she could get it. And she worked two jobs, so we weren't super well off, but she could afford it. And she was said, if you don't ask for the rest of the time, I'll be able to get it. Or sometimes she would say, um, right, can you be patient? Can you wait 2 weeks? Do you think that you can wait 2 weeks to come back to this? Yes, I think I can. Um, no, I can't do this right now, but if this were to happen and this were to change, you would have to make a decision. Or, hey, mom, I want both of these. Okay, well,
Mhm.
which one is more valuable to you? Which one would you like to spend your time more doing? So and at the end of it, most of the time, she would go and get it for me, and then when I'm waiting, she would be like, "Wait here, I'll be at the front," and then she'll go and get it. Because what you're teaching your child is those type of ways to socialize with the world and be able to control those emotions as a child when it comes to that is something to be mindful of. So that has stuck with me as an adult, of learning how to be patient, mindful, observe behaviors that I don't have to go do to understand they have negative consequences. And she just was very masterful about that. She never ridiculed me. She never yelled at me. She never had to raise her voice. She just pointed out observations from other people to say, this is a behavior that we can incorporate, and this is a behavior that we don't. And it wasn't a controlling factor. It was just a very appropriate way. So, in of itself, she was a little, psychologist. But that's what happens when you're able to raise your children instead of bring them along with you, is that you're able to instill those morals in me. And I think that helped me as I just grew up as an adult and connecting with older people or being able to bring that to the table as I service my clients professionally.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like she was really able to help you walk through pivotal emotional milestones. Like
Hmm.
something that I talk a lot about is my neglect wound being
Uh,
really one of my biggest because
uh,
I was raised like everyone else in my generation or older with the rub some dirt on it, walk it off, or stop crying, or I'll
uh,
give you something to cry about, things like that. And so what it left me and all of us with is that narrative of like the weight of the world is on my shoulders and I'm the only one to carry it. So do you feel like with the foundation that she really built with you, that that is not really a wound that you struggle with?
no, that's not a wound that I struggle with. I think with her, she had toughness. Like, for example, those times where I would be sad and upset, she would say, what would she say? Like, mm, she in those circumstances, she would make the decision for me. As in, if it was something that I haven't done before, and I say, "No, I don't wanna do that because I'm comfortable where I am," she would say, "No, we're still gonna go and do it because you're gonna have a good time." And so 99% of the time, once I go and did it, she'll say, "Did you have a good time?" "Yeah, mom, I'm so glad that I went." So, and she knew when to make decisions for me, but she was very good at giving me my own autonomy to respond the way that I responded. And then because she didn't influence that or minimize that or pull my arm or say, "Don't cry," she never emasculated me at a young age as a boy to say boys don't cry or stop doing that or stop being a little girl. She never emasculated me. She never forcefully did something because her temperament projecting onto me was uncompromising. No, she took it as it was. So when I fell down, when I got back up, she allowed me to do that. I remember one time she was teaching me how to ride a two-wheeler, and it was that transition between the tricycle and the two-wheeler. And there was a wall down the hill, and all she said was, "Keep biking." I didn't know anything about the brakes, so I just kept biking, and she allowed me to hit the brick wall. And what it's kind of like, why would you let that happen? It's because they need to know that you're going to get hurt. You know that you're going to feel pain. I'm not going to allow you to feel more pain than you need, but I'm allow you to do it because that's how you balance. Okay, well now let me show you that you can slow down. So I think for me, I've never been neglected that type of way. And so I can empathize with other people as an adult being neglected that type of way, but having a parental wound or an unconscious wound with that, I don't think that I'm conscious enough to say that that's a case for myself, but I can understand why that's a case for a lot of people to try to heal that as an adult, because that really does happen. And then society doesn't necessarily make it better when it reinforces those type of beliefs about how to go about managing somebody's pain.
Absolutely. And you just made a great point too that it's not just our parents that create these wounds, it's society reinforcing the programming. Do you feel like that being raised in the way that you were allowed you to connect with your intuition and trust yourself?
You know, I there wasn't a lot of intuition. And that's a very funny word as I try to understand it as an adult because it's just a feeling. Like, and I say that very often, no matter who I'm talking to, is that it's just a feeling. It's just a thought That's all it is. You give it its power based on what you do and what you talk to yourself and feel about. But that's all it is. Just because you feel that way doesn't mean you have to operate based on that feeling. Because if we were operating based on our feeling, this world would be extremely more chaotic than what it is because it's animalistic. It's
Mhm.
so it's not civilized. It's just feelings. I operate on how I feel. So if anger, I get to bestow that. If it's ruthlessness, I bestow that. If it's just sadness, I bestow that. Like it's just going to be about me. So to me, I never went based on feelings. It was based on, what do you know? What did you learn? And so my mom never, I guess, dehumanized my feelings of what I felt, but she did condition me unknowingly about, you can feel that way, but you still need to operate in this type of way. And so that just created a lot of resilience in that type of way. And that, gave her a lot of feedback socially with other children who, again, like would ask that I would see behaving this type of way. And I would give her feedback like, Mom, we don't do that. Like, and she would tell me, no, we don't. So, and it was like that. Like, no, these tantrums and disrespect with homes and bullying other kids and being mean or treating other girls like this or other guys or teammates or teachers or other adults, we don't do that. And so she allowed me to just have that autonomy, but that doesn't mean that the autonomy of having the feeling always means that I have to do the behavior that is intrusively invading my mind to project that emotion, which is on the outside of that feeling. So I don't really do that. And that's literally what I do with adults now, is just because you feel that way, it's just a feeling. That's a different part of your brain, but you have the ability in the front part of your brain to be able to think about how you feel, and it doesn't mean you have to do what your feelings are telling you to do. That's how you create better improvement in managing and controlling those feelings. So I did that at a very young age, and she did a good job with that.
Do you feel though, because a lot oftentimes, a trauma response is to really lack trust in yourself to be able to make decisions. Like for me, it used to be incredibly difficult to make any choice. Like every choice carried 1,000 pounds of weight with it because
Mhm.
I felt the way it was framed in my world was two distinct paths. If you choose this, it could be hell, it could be heaven. I'm just using those words, but, like,
Mhm.
catastrophe, like
Yeah.
how your brain is so good at feeding you catastrophe to keep you alive. But for me, I really had to learn how to connect with myself and what my inner knowing is to be my own truth. And I
Mhm.
think, like, regardless of structure, I'll say, um autonomy, we are allowed to have an inner truth that guides us. And so
Yes.
I know it took a really long time for me to connect with that and feel embodied and empowered enough to make decisions that I felt like were good for me because I like to say I made all the right decisions like from, till post-secondary college and whatever, like, I was the golden child in my family,
Okay.
so
Okay.
I was doing all of the right decisions, but for all of the wrong reasons. So when it got to a place where I decided I'm not making decisions from a place of pleasing everyone, where do I make that decision from, you know?
Mm. No, absolutely. I think that there are two things that popped up in my mind. One is I try to get people to have relation with their negative feelings. Okay. So, foundationally, something that I use as a tool with clients is, in our foundation of our feelings, we have six main foundational feelings. Four out of those six are negative. So, what does that tell us about our feelings and our experience as a human being? It means 66% of the time, you're going to be operating within a negative feeling. What happens is, a society tells you that you should be fighting for those other two out of the six. And if you're not operating within those type of way, whether it's your decisions, your behaviors, your choices, you need to be, there's something wrong with you. And I'm like, No, it's not. You just are fighting the relation of not understanding that these negative feelings could be a catalyst for you to be better. Because you have to imagine, right? If it's something positive and it's going good for you, would you want to change it? No. So it tells us in human behavior, in our nature, we only can change based on negative feelings. You don't change based on positive feelings because it's
Mhm.
positive. So
Mhm.
how you have a relation to that is saying, no, this is trying to tell you something. And so when you are growing up with those type of black and white, or what we call polarized thinking of it's heaven or hell, good or right, there's a positive consequence or there's a negative consequence. We call that polarized black and white thinking, all or nothing type of thinking.
Mhm.
What it's saying is that, well, what feelings am I experiencing with this experience that is triggering that? Okay, I know that this is just a wound. This is a wound where I didn't have the autonomy, or my autonomy was stripped to be
Mhm.
ridiculed for making a decision for myself. But what does that say? I have to use my executive functioning part of my brain to say, I can think and hold on to that because it was useful for me. It protected me. It got me to this point.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean it has to be the same fuel, as I do have the privilege, based on my free will and being a self sufficient adult, to make decisions that may be fulfilling, to have more experiences of those positive feelings down below. So, what I need to do, I need to remind myself of that, because your trauma is a wound. And that's something I don't agree with a lot of people. It's like, I have to heal my trauma. No, you need to have a relationship with your trauma, because whether it was a physical injury, a psych, or an emotional injury, you're always going to have it. It's not the same anymore. It
Right.
may be, so what we have to do is manage it. And managing could be like, okay, this is a wound. I'm triggered by this, but let me find the evidence to say I can make a decision for myself
Mhm.
with that happening. And they may not happen with 100% of your decisions, or that may only happen with 80 or 50% of your decision. Who knows? But you have to manage your trauma. You can't heal from it. It's happened. It is not going to change. You can't go back. You have to manage it. And so I train people to be able to have a relation with their negative feelings, not dissipate them and compartmentalize them and think they're going to
Right.
go from negative to positive. No, I need you to operate within those. And we have to be able to use this because it was helpful. It helped you survive. It helped you um be safe in some type of way, but you don't have to choose that going forward. You can make different and better choices for yourself now.
Absolutely. And something that just occurred to me yesterday, because I used to classify like I was on a healing journey. Um, and I had so much trauma to understand and unpack because I had minimalized it my entire life and dismissed it and thought, it didn't affect me because I'm not doing the things my brothers did.
Mhm.
But then I got to an understanding where it's like, well, healing is not about fixing anything. It's not about a destination point. It's about loving yourself for the fact that you're a really fucking messy human being and you can love yourself unconditionally, have unconditional positive regard regardless. Like yeah, I'm still going to work. I'm still going to like be better and evolve. But it was yesterday the word growing just sparked for me where it was like that's what this is. It's just growth. It's just evolution. I had some experiences. I wanted better. Made better choices. I continue to grow into my choices, my autonomy, my trust, my intuition, my voice, and I I like framing it as growth because that is what more accurately represents this process because or the human experience in general. Lots of people don't grow throughout their lifetime. We see them as clients, but we know if we frame it as growth, there's not an end point. You're not going to be grown. If you want to get the most out of this lifetime, you're going to continue to be curious anytime you have a negative response to something. I know for myself, I don't take anything as seriously as I used to in terms of my internal processing. I What I discovered was that the core center of all of the disaster that I was really just sinking in was my overthinking and constant just negative self-talk and shame and blame and fear and doubt. So learning to control the way I use my brain has been the key for me. But I'm a woman who has frequent shifts in my hormones. So some of those hormones will make me like just random shit to pop up to either worry about or be pissed about or sometimes be happy about. That would be nice if that happened more often. But it's usually like, oh my God, I got to worry all of a sudden or whatever. I used to latch on to something like that for hours, days. Now I'm like, "What the hell is that? Why is this coming up?" But I think curiosity about
Right,
any of
right.
those internal processes really sets you free.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you on that. So, in our field, you would say that you're more prone to neuroticism, which is
Mhm.
the units of experiencing negative feelings per unit of stress. Women are more in tune with that, again, because it's a chemical thing and it's also an animalistic thing because you have to attend to children. So, I think what happens is, and this happens often in therapy, is that people don't attend to the negative when the positive is continuing to happen. But they definitely attend to it when the negative is happening, and that makes sense. But it's kind of like if for a week you're PMSing and you're going through your period and you have all these, hormonal fluctuations and stress and all these type of things happening with you, or even if it's in a relationship and negative things are happening, you need to take the opportunity, that moment of those other 3 weeks or those other 2 weeks, depending, to look back and say, "What do I need to put in place when I feel this
Mhm.
coming on? How do I need to warn my social support system of how to treat me? How do I warn the men around me that I'm starting this?" But a lot of people don't put those, antecedents, the thing that happens before the thing happens. They don't put the antecedents when they are doing well, when they are going to experience something. And so they only deal with the consequences after
Mhm.
that. And it's kind of like in any facet of your life, how many more consequences do you want to happen or keep going through this experience to I guess, the volatility that it has, when all we can do is maybe instill some new skills or perspective or curiosity or behaviors, as the antecedent before it happens, because you're going to go through it again. It's going to be a new month. It's
Right.
going to be 3 more weeks. But how do you prepare yourself and other people in order to manage that when you are going through that? And a lot of people in many different facets don't do that very well. And that's,
Mhm.
why we have a job. So to help them.
Right, right. No, I love the way you have framed that because it wasn't until I got so attuned to my body, like, different sensations, that I went through a really stressful period. And when the period was over, not menstrual, like a time of,
Okay,
a
okay,
stressful
got
time.
you.
Yeah, a
Cool,
stressful
cool.
time.
Appreciate that clarity, yeah.
It was over and I looked back and I was like, I'm okay with how I dealt with it, but I don't necessarily like the feeling I'm left with after. What did I do? What could I have done better that would have I learned I was white knuckling through this experience. And so I was like, okay, instead of white knuckling, here are some things I could put into place in my toolbox for the next time something like this happens in my life. And then the same thing does honestly happen with my menstrual cycle every month because I have PMDD. So I literally I'll get maybe 2 weeks out of the month that are pretty good and normal. Oftentimes not even that, just because my body responds so crazy to estrogen and progesterone. So the spikes get me every time.
Right.
But I have this as a part of my toolbox in terms of, okay, I know that I can't take on too much. I know that I have to rest. I know I need extra water. And like, if I wake up and I'm just feeling just extra bitchy because I'm just so agitated, immediately I'm letting everyone around me know, like, listen, I'm going to take extra space because everything is really irritating me right now. It is not you. It is me. It's not even a feeling. It's just an internal biological process that's happening. Has nothing
Right.
to do with how much I like or don't like anyone. Literally, last night, my fan was blowing ever so gently onto a piece of paper that was making the most irritating sound, a sound I've never heard in my life. It was irritating me that bad. And I was
Right.
like, just what in the world? Which piece of paper is this touching? But that's not a feeling. That's just a biological process that's happening, and I get to decide how much weight I want to put on that. But what I used to do is assign morality and emotion to really stupid shit. Like it didn't none of it
Yeah.
mattered, but I was making it matter far more than
Right.
it needed to. So you're
Absolutely.
exactly right. We do, if you can give things forethought and think, and not in a way that's like super overthinking, let's say social interactions, although that can, you can build your toolbox into, if I feel this, I will. I think some people get this confused with um foreshadowing, a lot of like, my brain isn't with us today, so the word is slipping my mind.
I
But
got you.
where they're like future forecasting, but all negative, all catastrophe, like, oh, this could go wrong, this could go wrong, rather than just an emotional centered place where you say, okay, I know in social interactions I can get overwhelmed. If I get overwhelmed, I will do this. I just really think this is a real fundamental piece of the toolbox that people need
Absolutely.
to build.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think that got to my point of um that I mentioned earlier, but I'll make it a lot clearer, is with anybody, one of the very basic things that I teach is we don't put morals and we don't put labels on feelings. We
Mhm.
don't put morals and we don't put labels. They're just feelings. That's all that they are. It's our body's response to our experience in our environment. That's all that they are. We just put a name to it, but that's all that they are. Feelings are on the inside, emotions are on the outside. That's how simple I would make it.
Mhm.
So when you put a morale and you put a label on it and you're operating differently within that, that was good or that was bad or that was wrong, that was right. You start to really um let yourself down because you're like, if I'm not operating within that morale or I'm not operating within that label, then something is wrong.
Mhm.
But it's just a feeling. And so I have to train clients to understand that we're just going to talk about the feeling. We're not going to put the labels on it. And when you start to articulate yourself without doing it, then you're going to understand you're a little bit less anxious. You're a little less fearful. You're a little less worried. You're a little less harder on yourself. Because if I'm not operating that way, cool. Like if it was wrong, it was wrong. It was right, it was right. If it was it was masculine, it was feminine, it was correct, incorrect, it doesn't matter. It's just a feeling about that. Now, as we translate that to behaviors, you can't you need to put morals and labels on behaviors because there
Right.
are certain things in society that are right or wrong as we interact with other human beings. So, but
Right.
a feeling what's happened internally um doesn't need that type of battle. It doesn't need that. So I train clients on that. The other thing that I was thinking about is that I train my female clients a little bit differently than I train my male clients. And this is not a stereotype. This is just literally my observation. My observation is when women come to me, I have literally measured objectively their feeling statements. And what happens is because they operate more from an emotional basis, that's completely normal as we are introduced to therapy recovery. With men, it's a little bit opposite. They're very more logical, analytical. It's about things. And
Mhm.
so with women, I want them to start to operate more in the executive functioning part of their brains and measure the progress with that compared to just saying, oh, I feel this way. Whereas with men, I actually want you to be more in tune with how you feel because the issue is that you just do, but you don't take time for what's happening on the inside. So even though that's a very stereotypical type of thing, I think that I operate them differently that way. And it's been pretty successful to look at a woman make a lot of feeling statements and operate her behaviors or the symptoms that she's experiencing from her feelings. And when she starts to think and make more thought statements and be more curious analytically, it helps her manage her feelings because she's going to naturally have more. Whereas with a man, it's like, what you do, I want you to start to be in tune and more mindful about how you feel about those because we call that depression. We call that being anxious. We call that feeling incompetent. Like now we need to I need you to be aware of these words because you know what's happening. You just don't know the feelings labeled enough to associate with what's going on. So I kind of manage men and women that way. It's not just something that happens because you have some women that are more conscientious and they need to be a little bit more in tune with what they're feeling about those, especially underneath. And there's
Hmm.
some men that are very emotional where again, maybe they have to provoke more executive functioning and more thought. So, but on average, it's pretty much been like that so far in my career
Yeah.
with female and male clients.
Yeah. I really find for myself that um I learned at a really young age how to intellectualize all of my experiences. So even though there were a lot of emotions, I, like so many of my generation and older, really didn't know how to connect with the emotion. That was something that I really had to learn was how to stop intellectualizing everything because I thought the more I thought about it and dissected it, categorized it, all the things, that was the way to
You'll find your
resolving
answer.
whatever was
Yep.
going on, you know? But yeah, I had to like go, okay, why was I so pissed just then? Because everything manifested outwardly as anger for me.
Yeah.
So, I'd be like, "Why was I so pissed? What was I thinking about? Oh, okay. Oh, I felt rejected. Why I'm now understanding what the feeling was, but I didn't know how to, like, feel
Yes.
that to then be able to release it." So that was a really big process for me, and I think a lot of women think that they are experiencing feelings because we do have this wide range of emotions and fluctuations all freaking day, a lot of us, but we're not because we're just thinking about our shit. We're not feeling things enough to just like move through it. But I think as a society, we're pretty feeling phobic and I think most people would fall in somewhere on the spectrum of avoidant. I really do. I even though I myself in intimate relationships was very like anxiously attached and hated myself if we weren't communicating enough or there was some perceived rejection. But I think too, to both of our points, I think that getting to a place where you're not taking every little thing that happens in your life either just an experience or a response from someone else personally, and you understand that this is just the human experience,
Yeah.
and we have to learn how to question what's happening around us to not, like, live in victimhood, you
Yeah.
know? I think that's a really, really important piece.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I would recommend. And I think this is the theme about the statements that you were making about how you went through that process. So, and for anybody listening, this would be a great nugget. So, what I would recommend is that if you're asking the question why, the answer will never be good enough. If you're asking the question of why, the answer will never be good enough. It's an everlasting question because you can always continue to ask it. So when you learn that lesson and that principle and that rule, What you need to do is if you're asking why, you need to break it down to two other questions. What and how? Whether you're asking a direct question of why or whether the principle about what you are thinking about has a why principle to it, what and how questions. What was I triggered by? What was said? What happened? What do I keep doing in response to this? What am I truly upset about? What affected me? Not why it affected you. Who cares why it affected you? It affected you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're staying too much on the why is a natural question that naturally makes you defensive and anxious. I don't care if it's why is blue your favorite color. It makes you anxious. It is one of the 5 W's, who, what, when, where, how, or how is a H, but yeah, where it's a naturally defensive and anxious provoking question. And you're doing that to yourself and going down this endless cycle. So catching yourself and saying, "What?" and dissecting it because it's probably a theme because there's a difference between reactions and responses. If you're reacting to the same thing, you probably need to know why you're reacting to it because you would respond to it and say, "Hey, this is just minuscule. This is life. This is the human experience." So it's just a response. But if you're reacting to it, there's probably a theme inside you, and life, until you attend to it, is going to keep telling you in different type of facets, relationships, environments, with people, to attend to it. So, what is it about this thing? It wasn't the person, it wasn't the parent, it wasn't your friend, it wasn't your boss, it wasn't that job, it wasn't this place. It was you in relation to all of those type of things
Mm-hmm.
because they can't cause you to feel that way. So, what is it about that when you start to dissect that why? Now, once you have good information about that and you don't make yourself anxious and defensive, now we can be curious about, well, how? Because I'm going to be triggered by that. It's going to happen again. How do I respond? How do I make myself feel safe? How do I think about this? How can I warn other people? How can I do that differently? So breaking down why and breaking it down to two questions, what and how.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I have loved having you here today. Before we wrap
Yeah.
up, is there any like final thoughts, anything you want people to know about you, where to find you, any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody that wants any type of mental health coaching, you can visit my website at pqcoachingandconsulting.com. I would love to hear from you. I help any type of person. I mostly specialize in women, but men, you are very welcome to assist anyway. If there's something that you're wanting to solve as a problem, and you want help being guided through that to minimize your negative symptoms and experiences, then I'm the guy for you. But I operate out of Atlanta, Georgia. So if you want any type of therapy, you can still contact me through the website. So therapy and coaching are a little bit different. So I can only operate out of Atlanta, Georgia. But coaching, I can do any place, anywhere in the world. So just one person at a time. And so if you're not having the best human experience, you know that your experience can be better if you break through whatever that type of barrier or contemplation you have going on and you need help with that, then reach out to your professionals or reach out to me in order to help you through that. So that way you can have a better experience for yourself. So PQ Coaching and Consulting is where you can find me.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay, I'm going to push stop on record, but if you'll just hang out for 1 second to make sure your part's uploaded.
Okay.
Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share.